Hi, I'm Dr. Olson. I am out sick today, unfortunately, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the research that I plan to do with freshwater this semester and get you involved. So, to tie this into something from last week, Dr. So showed a picture of a hamburger and he was talking about how eating bad foods can lead to obesity. And I was sitting in the audience thinking, really, a hamburger is just a lot of water if you think about it. The bun, which is made out of, wheat, is mostly water. You have a lot of toppings like lettuce, tomato, and onion, which are mostly water. And then even the beef patty, if you think about cows, they take a lot of water. So I'm kind of jesting, but also serious in that there were some estimates that said if we wanted to talk about how many gallons go into making a single hamburger, it can be over 600. And so I'm really interested in what water is used for and things that we're doing that affect water usage. You might think that there is a lot of water on the planet. We are known as the blue planet, but when it comes to the distribution of water, you find that most of the water on the planet is salt water, and estimates are normally between 97 to 98%. And salt water is really unusable for many of the things that we need water for, like agriculture, drinking, domestic use. So that leaves us with less than that, maybe 3% by some estimates, of fresh water that's available. But even that fresh water that we have is not all readily accessible. Most of it is held up in ice caps and glaciers. There's a big portion of it that's stuck in the ground. And so when we're talking about accessible fresh water, it's mostly rivers and lakes and aquifers, which are in the ground. And that's a very small percentage. So we have something called the freshwater problem, which is that as the human population is growing, we need more water, but we have a very finite resource or amount of water that is available. And as things change on the land, we're noticing changing water quality conditions. So that water that is available can become polluted and then is no longer available. Now we're kind of blessed in Oklahoma that we have quite a bit of water. We have over 1 million surface acres of water in the state and 200 lakes, many of which are man-made. We have 23 different aquifers, and if you look over to the image on the right, you can just see some of the water resources that we have. I read a statistic that said if you were to add up all the shoreline in Oklahoma from every lake, water body, it would be more than the Pacific or the Atlantic coast in the States. So we have quite a bit of water here, but even the water that we have is not without its problems. When we talk about pollution and freshwater resources, we typically divide it into two types of pollution. The first being point source, and kind of like the name implies, we could point to a channel maybe, or a pipe that's draining into a stream, and we could point and say that's the problem. So this would be like in town, we have a waste treatment center, and they have a pipe that channels wastewater into the stream. Boom. Now, the thing with point source pollution is it's not that common. It's not super easy to be able to point out a single thing causing pollution. And secondly, most of these things in freshwater sciences are regulated, which means that you have to have a permit to dump something out. So somebody is checking this quite constantly. Over here, this is the more common type. It's non-point source pollution. And this is where you have very different variable sources that are causing pollution, and you can't pinpoint a single place or a single pipe that's causing the river to be polluted. So this would be like in town, we have a lot of impervious surfaces, that is concrete structures, and as it rains, water washes over those, and it's going to wash over farms and pick up dirt, and wash over, the come and go gas station and pick up oil, and all of those will eventually make their way to the stream. These are much harder to manage because it's not a single place where these pollutants are coming from, and we can't directly go and identify the source. But this is the realistic one that we have to deal with. When it comes to measuring water quality, it is defined by the Clean Water Act, and it states that we have a job to maintain the integrity and functionability of physical, chemical, and biological parameters of the water. So to test water quality, you have to test all three legally. The first are those physical parameters, and those are kind of descriptors about the habitat, so like temperature, color, taste, and odor. Chemical parameters have to do with what's dissolved in the water, and then biological parameters are the living things like macroinvertebrates and fish. Oklahoma has its own set of problems when it comes to water. If a body of water is not meeting its designated use, what we said we're using it for, it's listed as impaired, and we put these impaired bodies of water on a document called a 303D list. And this is quite an old picture, but every body of water that's in red in the picture is listed as impaired. And in Claremore, I like to point out that all 3 bodies of water that we have in our town are listed on the 303D list. We have Claremore Lake right here, which is listed as having high chlorophyll levels, which tells us that there are high nutrients coming into the lake from surrounding runoff. We have Dog Creek, which is attached to Claremore Lake right here. Dog Creek is listed for having Enterococcus and E. coli bacteria, as well as problems with dissolved oxygen and macroinvertebrates. And then the problem stream, Cat Creek, which runs here, Cat Creek is listed for several of the same things as Dog Creek and then a few additional ones. And the biggest difference between these 2 streams in town, Cat Creek and Dog Creek, is where they go. Dog Creek kind of runs on the outskirts of town. It goes by where the turnpike is as you're headed towards Pryor, so like Highway 20, and so it doesn't get a ton of urban influence. Cat Creek, on the other hand, runs right through the center of town. So if you focus in on this part here, this is going to be running through where like Reese's is, it's been paved, it goes under the road in several places, and this is the stream where we divert stormwater. So anytime that it rains in Claremore, the stuff that's going down storm drains is ending up in Cat Creek. What I'm most interested in researching is how anthropogenic factors, or the way that we are managing land, influences water quality. And so for this study, I want to know how urbanization is impacting water quality and macroinvertebrates. Macroinvertebrates, as the name implies, are large invertebrate organisms found in streams, and they depend highly on water quality. So the hypothesis that we'll be testing is that increased urbanization, Cat Creek versus Dog Creek, is going to have lower water quality parameters and less diversity and abundance of macroinvertebrates. So to that end, I have 2 different projects that I'm going to be doing. The first project I plan to do starting now, so it'll run through February and March, and I want to take several water quality samples from Dog Creek and Cat Creek at a couple different points and then compare them. So it'll be a little bit of field and lab work. We'll go out to the field and probably do a habitat assessment. We'll collect water samples and bring them back to a lab in order to test, and then we'll do a write-up to see comparing Dog Creek and Cat Creek and what the current status is. The second study will then happen later this semester between March and April. We'll go back to the same sites where the water quality samples were taken, and this time we're actually going to collect the macroinvertebrates that I was talking about. So this time we'll be looking at diversity, abundance, and differences in communities between the 2 streams to see if there's a difference there. So if you're curious about either of the projects or you want to get involved, here is my email address, which is the best way to reach me, or you can stop by my office, which is Loshbaugh 208. Thanks.